Good morning. Thank you, Jabulani. My talk is about developing a proposal for the trade in Rhino Horn for KZN Wildlife. And that proposal was submitted by the CEO, Dr. Bandile Mkhize, to the Department of Environment Affairs and Mvuzo and Samang 3 months ago. So it's been extremely disappointing that the minister has come out with the statement that she has made with respect to South Africa having not had enough time to prepare for CITES COP17 in March 2013. We prepared that proposal in the CITES format in an effort to save time. This decision is pathetic. Excuses and announcement that takes me back to those dark days 20 years ago when such statements were made by the environmental ministers in those years. That was the norm then. It is pathetic because in saying no to trade, she did not announce those additional measures that need to be taken to secure our rhino and the current poaching onslaught, and to provide those resources, as explained by the previous speaker, Mr. Conway, that are now needed. But it's worse than just that. You've had the Esemvelo perspective in what resources are needed. But remember that 25% of South Africa's rhino are privately and communally owned. Those community conservation areas were hard won over the last 40 years, as well as the private rhino owners and game parks in KZN, who face this onslaught. No announcement has been made as regards how those particular areas would be, what assistance would be given to those particular areas. Those are probably the most vulnerable of our rhinos in this province and elsewhere in the country. I acknowledge the assistance in this paper from David Cook, Miles Mander, and Michael Eustace, all of whom are in the audience. The status quo, we've dealt with this already today, so I won't spend much time. Currently, in the center of that diagram, you've got the rhino population and their natural deaths, and horns are collected off the dead animals. On the right-hand side, you've got the measures that are there to safeguard and increase the rhino population through protection, etc. And on the left, you've got what is happening in terms of the poaching that is being undertaken, and the fact that these horns now become an asset to criminals. We've established this in terms of the market in the illegal trade in the Far East is traditional medicine and other new uses, their cultural and traditional beliefs around that, and essentially it is thought, although it is considered to be illegal by many of the users, etc., it is not immoral to trade and use rhino horn in those Far Eastern countries. The supply to the market comes from criminal activities. This has been covered: poaching, pseudo-hunts, theft, fraud, and corruption. Criminal wholesalers and retailers will pay high prices, and as has been explained, the commodity is becoming more scarce. The incentives for the trade is profitable and lucrative, and all the risks are manageable. Have a cautious approach. Know where the law enforcement people are and go around them. Be opportunistic and easy. Pay the bribes. Also, hoard and stash away horn and feed it slowly to the market so you can speculate on increased prices in the future. What are the costs of the illegal trade? For a rural poacher, very low cost. Sophisticated poacher, probably a little bit more negotiable. Provide the equipment? Yes. Bribes. You can bribe the field ranger, the security forces, customs officials, and even the private rhino owners. Yes, you've got a cost to transport it overseas. And if you're caught, well, it's very simple. You've got enough resources to pay the fines, okay, to pay your defense in court, and maybe you face imprisonment. So the risks that you may be apprehended and charged, prosecuted and convicted, the equipment you've used, like your firearms, your vehicle, may be confiscated, and your ill-gotten gains from poaching rhino might be forfeited. But it's worth it, given the price values, estimated at a wholesale price of $20,000 per kilogram of horn, and a set of horn on average is about 4 kilograms. At the retail level, the price doubles, and 1 kilogram of horn gives you about 143 doses at about 7 grams a dose. Where do the proceeds go of the criminal activities? They accrue to the criminals. What should our strategy be in a legal trade? Multi-pronged. Principally 2 prongs to this. Firstly, replace the illegal market with a legal trade. How do we do that? We follow the example of De Beers Central Selling Organization. 98.4% of the diamonds sold on the planet are sold through that. It's a monopolistic trade. It's not totally dictated by market forces. So a central selling organization that would set the price for a package of horns, which can manage the price. In the press and the media, everybody talks about lowering the price. We must not do that because you increase demand. You manage the supply on offer and avoid incentives for speculators, and undertake the audits that are required to ensure proper practice. The second part, this is covered mostly by Tony, improve anti-poaching and illegal trade deterrence. We know there's no silver bullet, Tony said that. Improve law enforcement, the laws and regulations, the penalties, vigilance at our border, and have an economic instrument in part of that whole suite of deterrence. The supply to illegal trade will come only from natural mortalities of white rhinoceros, from the stockpiles that have been accumulated over the decades, and those horns that come as a result of harvesting, as a result of court convictions. But no harvesting of horns and defacing of rhino will be undertaken at this point in time. Certification. For every horn intended for trade, analyze the DNA. Identify the chemical isotopes so that it can be located to site. Insert a transponder, which would link to a central database that will ensure that no fraudulent horns enter the market and all horns are legal. The operation. Verify your buyers. Hold 3 or 4 sales per year. I've said, offer the horn as a package at a set price. Clean horns only. What do we mean by that? In the theft that is going on in North America and Europe, horns in taxidermists' horns, hunters' collections, museums have been stolen, and clearly they have been treated with arsenic, etc., to preserve them. Maybe manipulate the price between sales. Export the horns in terms of CITES certification. Don't make the mistake of having an auction of horns, and certainly do not flood the market to drive it. The proceeds were intended for this, of the sale of horns to accrue to conservation agencies and private and communal landowners, which would allow for more effective law enforcement to protect the rhinos and other biodiversity, and importantly, to ensure the protected area expansion for more rhinos. So that's the desired state, where you replace the illegal market with a legal market. What have we learnt? Since 1980, the number of rhinos has increased from 3,200 in South Africa to 22,000. In the rest of Africa, during the same period, it has declined from 14,500 to about 3,000. But the asset value from the original South African population at about 150 billion US dollars has increased to 960 million US dollars. So the lessons learned increase its value. The South African experience demonstrates allow rhinos to be owned by private safari parks and game parks, allow live animals to be traded, allow trophy hunting of rhinos, but add trade in rhino horns. Other rhino states, rhinos are near extinction, as no value was added, and that has been shown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both insightful and informative. I will take one question, and then we'll discuss other questions during tea. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Roger. Hello. Okay, sorry. Thank you. That was very interesting. I have two parts to my question. The one is around, you said you're not going to include dehorned animals in the trade. Could you just explain that? And the second part is around the value of the horn. How accurate are those numbers that you put on? You said 40,000 and 20,000 per kilo. Thank you.
To answer the second question first, they're estimates. Those values are estimates based on what is known in terms of the trade of these horns in the Far East. So we've got a pretty good indication of around those sort of numbers. Okay, sorry, I have forgotten the first part of your question. Just remind me.
Dehorn.
Oh, dehorning. Yes. Dehorning and defacing of rhino is a highly controversial matter. Okay. And it's controversial because from an ethical point of view, there are a lot of people who do not want to see rhinos missing their horns, cut off. Okay? Secondly, there's issues around the behavior of the animal, social interactions and behavior, and how that might affect it. However, it's certainly an incentive for private rhino owners if they can earn additional funds from harvesting of horns. But because it's universally controversial, it was seen at a high risk to go to CITES in 2013 with that proposal. It is difficult enough as it is. And when your own government, as I said at the beginning of this talk, turns around and says no, you can see what this proposal is up against. And given, I must reiterate, nothing by the Minister to address those huge concerns as elucidated by Conway.